Good morning once again. Children's Church, you guys can be dismissed to your classes. This side is a little empty, so if you guys if the building starts tilting that way, you guys want to lean a little bit that direction. But welcome to Zoah. I just wanted to begin by thanking everyone for your prayers and your cards and the gifts you've given us this week with the passing of Tabitha's uncle. Uncle Doug was a great man of God. He had a great impact on a lot of different people, including Tabitha, and she actually, even one summer, spent 3 months living with her aunt and uncle down there in Louisiana, and so on. Very neat man, no doubt where he is, that he's received that crown, his reward in full, and so, but thank you for your support during this time. Tabitha and the younger 3 girls are actually, just so you know, they are out of town, visiting some relatives in Sullivan, Indiana area. This is not only is it a 3-day weekend, but it's the last weekend before the marching band season really kicks in. Many of you guys that have been involved either as students or parents know that once that starts, we're busy through the end of October, November, so on. So the little chance to get away before that, and so they're out having fun without me, so don't feel too bad. I'll be all right. So we had a good experience down in Louisiana visiting family and celebrating his life, the life of this man that he lived. And we flew. It was just more practical with a short time frame to fly. We don't fly very often. I love flying, but we don't fly very often. As a family of 6, I mean, you can imagine, you don't fly very often. I mean, it's a little too expensive for that. We fly into the minivan and go. But when I get a chance to fly, I really enjoy it. You enter the airport and it's just like, it's a world of its own. You enter this other world and you're at the airport and maybe I'm weird, but I think it's kind of exciting. I mean, it can be stressful. On the way back, we had to stop in Dallas and then get on a different plane to go to Indianapolis. And of course that plane was running late. That's the thing you fear when you fly. And so we had to run to find the right gate and get to catch our other flight. And so it can be stressful, but it's also exciting, I think, to travel. And I just love being in the plane and being up above everything. It just changes your perspective on the world. And just you can see the beauty down below you, whether it's the greens and blues and browns of the countryside, or it's the twinkling of the little tiny cities down below you. I just love the perspective that flying gives, and I really enjoy that experience. And when you fly, there's a group of people that it's their job to take care of you. It's called the flight crew. And there's the pilots and the co-pilot and people that are in charge of the actual operations of the plane. And then there's the flight attendants, and they all work together to try to make your experience pleasurable. And as safe and pleasurable as possible. So they work together. They're trained to take care of everything, to take care of the people on board the plane. Now, and they're trained. Sometimes we don't necessarily think about their training and stuff. We just know, if we have a good flight and it's nice and smooth, and we get our pretzels and everything works smoothly, then we're happy. We don't think that they've been trained to handle all kinds of different circumstances that we hope that we maybe never encounter some of those circumstances. But you sit in your seat and you learn about the seatbelt, the buckles, and learn about the oxygen mask is going to come down and in case you need it, and that your seat can be used as a flotation device. So they go through all these things, and then you just kind of tune it in or tune it out depending on how much you fly. It's okay, just kind of go on. But they've been trained for these different situations that you hope you never experience. If there's a loss of cabin pressure and the oxygen masks do come down, they're trained on how to handle that situation and help us handle that because we'll be all panicking and going crazy. They're trained to handle things that we don't experience. But it could happen. Whether it's an emergency landing or whether it's a water evacuation, all those things that they've trained to help us handle those things. And maybe a medical emergency happens on a plane or some other kind of threat or concern. The flight crew exists to take care of the passengers of the plane. So the minute that plane door closes and we're all inside, their priority is the people in the plane, the passengers in that plane, and taking care of them. Today we're going to be in 1 Peter chapter 5. We're almost finishing up with our study through 1 Peter. We got this Sunday and next Sunday left. And we're going to wrap up just in time for Homecoming Sunday on the 15th. But in chapter 5, Peter begins by he addresses a group of people who, like the flight crew on an airplane, its job is to take care of the people on the plane. He addresses a group of people who exist to take care of the people of the church. So he begins this last chapter by directing his attention to the elders. Now, if you remember back in the Hats We Wear series, we took one Sunday, we talked about elders and deacons. And at that time, I didn't intend to revisit this quite so soon. But it's such a big focal point in 1 Peter that we can't really just skip it either. But that's okay because we're not really rehashing the same territory. We're going to be bringing out some new insights and stuff that we didn't really cover before as much. So he's been talking to the church. We talked about the church is going through persecution, sufferings. He's been talking to the church, and now he's directed his attention for a few verses on just a specific group within the church. And he says, to the elders among you. So let's look at 1 Peter chapter 5, we're going to look at verse 1. And we're going to talk about the ministry of the elder. Peter starts out, he says, to the elders among you, I appeal to you as a fellow elder, a witness of Christ's sufferings, and one who will also share in the glory to be revealed. So let's stop there for a minute and let's look at this. So this is Peter, the Apostle Peter. Remember, bold, confident Peter, always kind of sticking his foot in his mouth, always speaking or acting before he really thought about things. We look through Peter's life and we see a lot of times where Jesus would have to redirect or correct or kind of speak into Peter's life, kind of setting him on the right track. Very bold kind of personality, it seems like. But through his age and his experience, it seems like Peter's matured a lot. Because notice what we don't see here. When he's going to talk to the elders, he doesn't pull a power play. Right? He doesn't say, look, I'm an apostle. I was one of the, Jesus could have picked any 12 people. I was one of the people that he picked. I got to follow it. For 3 years, I was a part of this. I went where he went. I slept where he slept. I traveled with him for 3 years. I traveled with Jesus. We walked on water together, sort of. And I was up on the Mount of Transfiguration. I was one of only 3 people that got to see Jesus up on the mountain when he was transfigured into this heavenly form. And he could be going on and on about how awesome and how you should listen to me because I've got all this authority, all this reason you should listen to me. I am one of the 12. But he doesn't put himself above them. He puts himself among them. He says, I appeal to you as a fellow elder. Because the apostles were the first elders. They were responsible for the spiritual well-being of the church and make sure that the truth was being taught and heresy wasn't being taught. And to make sure that the spiritual needs were being met. So the apostles were the first elders. And he doesn't say, hey, I'm an apostle. He says, I come to you as a fellow elder. He puts himself on their level. He lowers himself. He says, I know what it's like. I've been there. I'm doing what you're trying to do. We're in this together. So he addresses them modestly. And says, he knows what it's like. And he also points their directions. He says, we'll share in the glory that Christ will be revealed. Because in this time of persecution that the church was going through, it was good to remind them that this was all temporary. All the stuff they were going through is temporary. There will be a day where Christ reveals himself in all his glory, and they'll be rewarded for what they do. So he says, I'm a fellow elder. Even when he talks about witnessing Christ, he picks, he's one part of Christ's life. He says, I was witness to Christ's sufferings. Out of all the things he could have said, hey, I was with Jesus when, he picked his sufferings. And if you remember, that wasn't exactly Peter's finest moment. Christ's sufferings was when we see Peter denying him 3 times, We see him hiding in the shadows, experiencing the cross from the shadows. So the sufferings of Christ were not Peter's finest moments, but that's when he chooses to say, I was there then. He approaches it modestly. He knows what it's like. And then he goes on in verse 2. He says, be shepherds of God's flock that is under your care, serving as overseers. And we're going to stop there for a minute. Awkward place to stop, but we're going to kind of cut that verse in half. And we're going to look at, he talks to the elders and he said, be shepherds of God's flock. So shepherds, the elders are in a position of watching over the people of God and a select group of people. And shepherds shepherds lead sheep. They don't drive before them. But they lead them. Shepherds protect and care for their sheep. They don't just count the sheep to see how many there are, but they care and protect them as well. There was an article in Leadership magazine that tells the following story. It says, during World War II, economist E.F. Shoemaker, then a youngster statistician, he worked on a farm. And each day he would count the 32 head of cattle and then turn his attention elsewhere. One day an old farmer told him that if all he did was count the cattle, then they wouldn't flourish. And sure enough, one day he counted 31. One was dead in the bushes. Now Shoemaker understood the farmer. You must watch the quality of each animal. Look him in the eye, study the sheen of his coat, know the animals. You may not know how many cattle you have, but you might save the life of one that is sick. That's good advice whether you're a teacher or a minister or an elder, that a full classroom or a crowded church isn't necessarily a sign of a healthy classroom or a spiritual church. Taking care of the flock is about knowing how they're doing, not just knowing how many there are. So that's the idea, the job, the ministry of the elders is to know how they are doing, not just to know how many there are. But notice what else he says. He says it's God's flock. Okay? It's not theirs. The elders are in charge of shepherding God's flock. The eldership and pastorship is actually a kind of stewardship. God has entrusted a certain group of people. I wonder, when Peter's writing this, if this is the same kind of language that is used by Jesus himself. And I wonder if Peter hears Jesus' voice when he's writing this from that day after the resurrection when Jesus is like, Peter, do you love me? And three times Jesus asked Peter, do you love me? And each time Jesus is like, yes, Lord, you know I love you. And then Jesus' reply is similar. Each time he says, feed my sheep. Take care of my lambs. Feed my sheep. I wonder if Peter heard Jesus' voice as he was writing, shepherd God's flock. They don't belong to us. They belong to him. So eldership is a sort of stewardship. It's stewardship of people and taking care of what God has entrusted. The rest of verse 2 goes on, and then through verse 4, talks about some things that should motivate an elder and things that should not motivate an elder. So we're going to look at the motives of an elder, and that's going to be our next point. Finish off verse 2. He says you should be shepherds of God's flock, serving as overseers. And he says, not because you must, but because you are willing, as God wants you to be. Be not greedy for money, but eager to serve. So let's look at some motives. The first motive is that elders should not serve as an elder out of obligation or out of coercion, but because they are willing. So it should be something that's a desire. A man must desire to serve. If you have to twist the arm or beg a person to be an elder or a deacon, then that's actually the exact opposite of how the Bible tells us to do things. It shouldn't be a matter of coercion or talking into or twisting arms, but the man should be willing to serve, to do it because of their desire to. An elder should love Jesus and love Jesus' people, and those two things should motivate him to want to serve God and serve those people willingly. Because it won't always be easy. I'm sure none of you here would want a minister who was a minister because it's what his parents wanted him to do, or because he felt guilty. Maybe something in life happened and he felt guilted into the ministry to make God to appease for something they'd done. But you would want a minister who was serving willingly because that's what they wanted to do. That was their desire. And the elders, it's the same way. It should be a position that's desired, that's wanted, not coerced. Because it'll take a sacrifice. It'll take a sacrifice of time. It'll take vulnerable emotions as you deal with people's concerns and needs, and you deal with hurting people. You have to be vulnerable and open. It'll be hard sometimes. There'll be conflict sometimes. So it's not the place for someone who does not want to be there. So the first motivation you see is that you're willing. The second thing he says is to be not greedy for money, but eager to serve. And money is not necessarily a primary focus here. We don't pay our elders, and you don't go into ministry for the money, or if you do, you have been misinformed. You definitely serving Christ is not about the money, but in our context today, I think we can also look at the idea that behind this, the idea that the concept that Peter is getting at is this: is people serve the church not for what they can get out of the church, but what they can give to the church. It's not about what you can take or what you get, but it's about what you give. Going on to verse 3, Peter says, not lording it over those that trusted to you, but being examples to the flock. Not lording it over, being an example. Shepherds do not have a domineering approach. They're not harsh. They don't abuse or use excessive use of their authority. They lead by example, it says. They lead through service. Look at the words of Jesus in Matthew. In Matthew 20, starting at 25, it says, Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. But not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So Jesus is laying down the example. He's setting the stage of this weird power dynamic in the church, that if you want to be great, you serve. You lower yourself. You lead by service. You lead by example. It's not about power, but it's about service. An effective leader is one who is an example of what they want other people to do and what they want other people to be. And that's not just true in the church. The most effective leaders in any arena are the ones who live a life worthy of imitating and aren't just saying, do what I say, but they are modeling what they want the people to do. Living lives worthy of imitation. By being an example. But the best motivation of all is found in the next verse. And when the chief shepherd appears, verse 4, you will receive the crown of glory that will never fade away. So we serve because there will be a day that will receive that reward that will not fade away. You know, it's not based on man's opinion of us. It's not based on anything that we've done, but what Christ has done. And we will receive that crown of glory as a reward for serving Him. And that is the motivation. So we're going to move on to the manners of church leadership. Manner is defined, there's two definitions. the way in which a thing is done. Like the manner in which, when we say the manner something is done, the way in which is it done is things are done. And the other definition is a person's way of behaving towards others. So we are kind of talking about both of these things. That when we think about church leadership, how do we do it? How are things done? And what's our way of behaving towards other people in that whole midst of things? In Hebrews chapter 13, verse 17, shows us the manner in which we are to treat the leaders of the church. And he says, when I get on the right page, he says, obey your leaders and submit to their authority. They keep watch over you as men who must give an account. Obey them so that their work will be a joy, not a burden, for that would be of no advantage to you. So he talks about submitting to authority, but it's because they will be held accountable. Right? There will be an account. God will hold His shepherds accountable for what they do and for how they live and how they act. So what they need more than anything is your prayers and your support, because there will be a standard that they're held to in God's eyes. And they will be held accountable. And he says that it's not advantage to anyone. Being uncooperative is of no advantage to anyone in the church. So we're called to submit and pray and support. But back to our text in 1 Peter, verse 5, he says, young men, in the same way, be submissive to those who are older. And all of you, clothe yourself with humility towards one another. Because God opposes the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Both young and old can benefit from Peter's instructions here. Pride is a dangerous thing. Pride can keep older people from trying to understand the young people. They don't know anything yet. And then pride can keep younger people from listening to older and respecting those who are older. So listen to those who are younger than you and be humble enough to admit that you can learn from each other, both directions. So humility. This is the key to Christian leadership is humility, and it's kind of it seems like an oxymoron. It seems kind of like contradictory. The idea that to be the best leader is to actually humble yourself and be the most low. It's not about climbing up a ladder, but it's about serving at a table. When Peter says, clothe yourself with humility, and he picks that imagery, he picks it like it's something you put on, like clothe yourself with humility. Because it doesn't come naturally. None of us are humble by nature, but we're prideful, we're selfish by nature. And so humility is something we have to put on, we have to put an effort, we have to clothe ourselves with it. And I wonder if Peter thought back to that night with Jesus, when Jesus took a towel and it says wrapped it around his waist, basically put our version of an apron to wash the disciples' feet. That day that he humbled himself and led by example by serving and washing the disciples' feet. So we're called to clothe ourselves with humility. Philippians tells us that our attitude should be the same as Christ Jesus, who he submitted himself to becoming a man, submitted himself to death on a cross. And we're told to model that humility. So we're to respect and to serve each other. You know, throughout this series we talked about that when we follow Christ, we call strangers and aliens. And Peter says, you'll look like strangers and aliens in this world sometimes because the world just won't understand the way you're living and why you're living and how you're living. And that's true with this idea of leadership too. It might seem strange to the world. This whole first shall be last, if you want to lead, be a servant. The power structure of the church may seem like a contradiction, but we lead by serving, and it's this weird dichotomy because we're really all on the same page. Elders are called to humility and to serve and to live by example. And those under the elders' care are called to humility, to serve, to live by example. And the beautiful thing about it is this: when everyone starts getting concerned more with everyone else than themselves, if we all humble ourselves and get concerned with serving others, then the issues of leadership, the issues of authority, they're not about a power struggle anymore, but they're about honoring Christ with the things that we do, with the way that we treat each other. Putting others before ourselves is easier said than done. We have to swallow our pride. We have to humble ourselves. We have to trust. And that can cause anxiety. It's almost like subconsciously. I don't know if we consciously think this thought, but it's like, if I put others before myself, then who's going to take care of me? Like what do I mean? If I worry about others, if I put others before myself, then who will take care of me? And Peter answers that question. The last verse we're going to look at today. In verses 6 and 7, he says, "Humble yourself, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time. Cast all your anxiety on him, because he cares for you." God will take care of us. We worry about taking care of everybody else. God will take care of us. So what anxieties do you need to cast to him this morning? You pray. Father God, thank you for your promise that you will take care of us. So help us just to motivate us to serve others, to put others' needs above ourselves. It's not that we don't take care of ourselves, but that we put others' needs in the forefront and know that you will, in turn, take care of us. And if we all do that for each other, the church will be the place that it was meant to be. And they'll know that we are Christians by our love for each other, and your kingdom will grow. People will find you, find their salvation. Well, I pray for the person here who is burdened with any anxiety, burdened with cares and concern, that they be able to cast those on you, because we are in your mighty hands. Even when it doesn't feel like it, you take care of us. You watch over us. None of our problems have caught you off guard or by surprise. You're there for us. I pray that everyone here in this place today would find shelter in those mighty hands. In the name of your Son, Jesus, we pray. Amen. Would you stand as we sing?
And where you